Okay, great. It seems we are live on YouTube. And okay, on Zoom, I'm not moving. What's the issue? Mohammed, can you hear me? It seems we
Yeah,
are
yes,
live
I
on.
can hear you.
Okay, I can hear myself multiple times. Great. Okay, thanks to all my devices connected. Okay, so we are going live after a long time. So before doing anything, I just want to check the connection. And there's so many settings I have to do before going live, but something was not working. So this is the second link. The earlier link is not working thanks to these multiple softwares which we use nowadays, right? So currently we are using Zoom. We were supposed to go live on different softwares, but things are not working as I was expecting. Maybe you can blame it on the internet, you can blame it on the system I'm using. But here we are. We are live finally on YouTube, and we will be talking about Agile. And who is better than Mohammed here, who will talk about Agile? In fact, we are very close friends now. We met last year for one of the
Yep.
training, and then there's some kind of bond which we created. Not related to technology. We are from different fields, but the understanding of the concepts or the way you teach. So we were the co-trainers for one batch, and we enjoyed that work. And Mohammed Rowther is expert in Agile. So I have learned a lot of different concepts, uh, and it's not that he was teaching me those concepts. We were discussing it, and I have learned it so much in last 1 year. And that's why I wanted him to come to this channel to talk about Agile, because even I uploaded 2 videos, I guess, on Agile and Scrum. I got good audience who want to know more about it. So here we have an expert. So welcome to the channel, Mohammed, and it's a pleasure to call you on this platform. Um, and
Thank you.
today,
Thank you,
I
Naveen.
guess you will be exploring more about Agile and Scrum with different examples to the audience and to me as well. Welcome, Mohammed.
Thank you. Thank you, Naveen. Thanks for the opportunity, and it's been a pleasure knowing you. And we had fun working in the last 1 year, and it was a good bond that we kind of built, and I'm really happy to go live with you today. Um, so it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Naveen, for this opportunity.
Oh, great, great. So finally, while you're talking about it, I got my setup done. And so before moving ahead, Mohammed, I just want to check if everything goes good online, uh, because a lot of people are
Built,
watching
and
this.
I'm really happy to go live with you today. Um,
Oh, great,
so
great.
it's been a pleasure.
Everything is good.
Thank you, Naveen, for this opportunity.
Cool. But how do I stop it now?
Great. So finally,
Great. Yeah, it's working. It's working. Okay, so Mohammed, since you are here, and then the type of audience is different this time. Okay, so we had a different audience for the corporate. This time the audience is a bit different. Most of the audience on this platform are from corporate plus colleges, and then we have audience who are between these two. Someone who has completed the degree, they're looking for the job, or they have a job, but then they're not able to understand how industry works. When you are in college, what you learn is waterfall. You learn about different models, and then suddenly when you get into industry, they say, "Hey, we are following agile here," and then there's a big question, what exactly it means. So I want to know from your side, how do you explain, or yeah, so as a fresher, how should I understand agile?
yeah, definitely. So I totally agree with you. So when you
Sorry,
actually do your
I can't hear you. Is something wrong from my side? Hello?
hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. And now I can hear. So there's something
Yeah,
wrong from my connection. Yeah.
yeah. So yes, I mean, when you actually finish your engineering, or if you do your graduation, and when you come out, you would have learned a lot of things. You would have explored into a couple of things, like you would have touch based on traditional waterfall approach. You would have touched based on system design thinking, and all these aspects, but you wouldn't have gone into the depth. And what you learn there is purely is more theory. But when you come into the practical world, it's totally different. And most of the companies have now started to move into an agile environment. And when we say agile, what is it all about? It's all about working collaboratively, working together, and trying to work in a manner where you give more focus on individuals and interactions. So when I say individuals and interactions, it's all about trying to value what people think and how you relate to each other. So it's also about how we behave and also what we value as such. And if you put it in simple terms, it's about the mindset and the culture in the environment that you're working in. But apart from that, you also have in agile you could say that there's doing agile and being agile. And doing agile is all about the practices. So when you say practices, it's about the ceremonies and the rituals, or you can call the events like the stand-ups, the user stories, the iterations that you go through. All these aspects become a part of agile. But the major bit is the being part of it. And most organizations are actually trying to shift towards that. And they are struggling with that at this point of time. Now, when you are a fresher, when you're coming out of a college, when you finish your graduation, you would have explored maybe a little bit of agile. You would have seen companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. They deliver products as soon as possible, and their release cycle is quick. So even if you want a new iPhone, so you get a release every year, right? You get a new update every other week. How can they do it so quickly? How can Apple deliver an OS update every other week? They should have a faster delivery cycle. They have to focus on quality. They have to focus on what their customer really wants and how fast they fix those bugs. Now, all these can happen when you build these products and services, if it's really fast and iterative. So when we say iterative development, you try and build applications within a small time frame. So it could be a 1 week cycle, 2 week cycle, or a 4 week cycle. Now, Agile puts you onto this kind of environment. It tells you that, okay, we can build software in an iterative model by collaborating with each other, working as a team, respecting each other, and delivering high quality software. I mean, can you hear me?
Uh, there's something wrong with my internet connection. You can go on. I guess there
Yep.
is, I don't know what the last thing you said, but can you repeat that? The last part, anything from my side?
So I asked you if you could hear me clearly. Is it
Yeah, no,
okay?
no, yeah, everything is good now. Great.
Okay, cool.
Okay, now that was a great introduction to Agile, and so I have seen this. Mohammed, it's not every company goes for Agile methodology. So I want to understand if it is that great, why not every project? So is it only limited to software companies, or because I have read the history of Agile, how it came into picture, how this team got together to come up with a manifesto, but why they're only focusing on the software part, or even some software companies are not using it. So I just want to understand which company and what about products are most suitable for Agile.
Definitely. Um, if you look at the entire applications that everybody use on a daily basis, right? 99% of your applications are software driven. Now, how these software are being built is is one of the key aspects you have to think about. You could take the waterfall approach, the traditional model where you start collecting the requirements from your customer, and then you analyze it, then you design it, and then you start looking at implementing it, and towards the end you test it. By then you would have phased out. You would have used up like 12 months to 1 year, and when you try to release that product into the market, the game is over. You're out of date. You're not up to date. Now, when we want to introduce agile, right? We say that agile can speed up the process. Scrum is a framework that can also be utilized to speed up this process. Now, it's not only software that you can use. So you can use these frameworks across manufacturing, marketing. You can use them in hospitals. You can use them in sales, call centers, in education, in school. Recently, over the last 1 year, I've been using Scrum at home. So to track things. So you can use Scrum at your kitchen. You can use Scrum um, at your school. You want to manage things with your kids. You can do all these things. And the other aspects you got to remember is that it's not just for software; it's for every industry. We have a lot of things happening now with the marketing and HR. A lot of teams, the business and the technology have been kind of collaborative now. That they're working together. They want to speed up the process. So, just to give you an example, if you look at the way call centers work, call centers is a dynamic environment, right? So it's a kind of environment where the calls keep flowing, and how will you actually implement Agile or Scrum there? You can have the flow of work can be managed through through either a Scrum board or through a Kanban system. You could use apply Scrum patterns that enables you to keep 90% of the buffer to manage those calls and how the work needs to be prioritized. And for that, you could have your product owners, you can have a Scrum master, you can have a set of teams to work together. Now, this is if you look at the history, when you spoke about the history of Scrum, if you go back 45, 50 years ago, it started with Lean. It comes with Lean, and then Scrum came over in the 1994s, and then we had the Agile Manifesto in 2002. So the route is going to Lean. Lean is all about eliminating this waste. And when I say waste, it's not working on something your customer doesn't need, right? You try to work on items that is really essential. So your focus is customer centric, and you start delivering stuff that is really important for your customer. And we call that as value. Without value, there's no point.
Right, right. In fact, I forgot that phrase, what we used to do in these sessions, It's not about what you do, it's about what you should not be doing. Is that something
Yes,
we used to do?
that's really true. It's about how much value you provide to your customer. Even if you are like spending 80% of your time on doing something which is not valuable to customer, then it's of no point, right? So you have to choose at least the 20% of the value that you provide to your customer. So all your effort should go into that. So put 80% of your effort on that 20% value that you're delivering. So we call this, there's a law, it's called the Peritos Law. There's different things that we went through last year. So the main focus is the client, the customer, what the customer really wants.
Awesome. In fact, when I was a student in a college, I started my first project in 2009, I guess. As a college student, I was doing my graduation, and we were supposed to make a project for the college itself. So it was a big project for two people. And then we went for the requirements, and because that's what we have learned, right? Software development lifecycle, the waterfall. First, you have to gather the requirement, you have to analyze the requirement. So we went to the client, who was our accounts department of the college, and then we got all the requirements. Okay, so the person on the other side, he was just blabbering all the requirements. So this is what we want. This is what we want, and we were like, okay, we have taken all the requirements on the paper. Once we started analyzing the requirements, what we did is we chose all the features which we want to implement, and it took around 3 months to implement only those features which we wanted to implement first. And then when we took that project to the client, the client says this is not what we want.
Yeah.
So we were basically focusing on those things which was least important to them. So that's very important. You have to prioritize your requirements, which are very important for the client. And that's why this cycle is important, right? Maybe a 2-week cycle here or a 3-week
Yes,
cycle.
and that's definitely. And then the reason why you went to your client after 3 months, right? Because your feedback cycle, your feedback
Yeah.
loop was not defined. It wasn't short enough. So we are looking at like 1 week or a 2-week cycle, and that's when you get faster feedback, and you can
Right.
start improving your product.
Right, perfect. And when you talked about the history of Agile, I just want to know your history, Mohammed. I want to know, how you moved into this field of. So two things. First, why only Agile, and second, why you wanted to be a trainer?
A fantastic
Because
question.
that's the question I normally get. Why you're a trainer?
Yeah. So I graduated. I did my engineering in information technology, and I did the 4-year engineering, and I graduated in Bangalore,
Okay.
and I joined a couple of software companies, and it was pretty traditional waterfall approach. I was a developer, I was a tester, I was a test architect, test lead, test manager, and all these phases. And then I started getting exposed towards Scrum in 2008. And this is when I was working in an environment where we started exploring Scrum and implementing it. But as part of, I was also part of a QA at that point of time. So it was a big struggle getting the QA and developers to work together within this environment. So that was quite challenging, and I faced those challenges, and I love challenges. It makes you more stronger, and it makes you it keeps it challenging. It keeps it interesting to work in such an environment. And from there, I started exploring more of Scrum and looking at all the good aspects that you can actually implement. Now Scrum is a very simple framework. But you can still complicate it. You can make it. You could either go right or you could go wrong if you don't follow the rules. So it's like you play cricket, you play football. You have the rules of the game, but when you play it in an environment, when you go into a corporate culture, when you work in an organization, every organization is different. Every department is different. So you have to ensure that you observe the area, you observe what's going on and how you can actually work on those environments. So that's where the Scrum pillars and all these things comes into picture. Scrum talks about three pillars, right? You have the transparency, inspection, and adaptation, and it's all about inspecting and adapting, right? So you want to experiment. If you fail, you recover, you start implementing the changes, and then get that improvement in the team. If you don't recover, if you don't actually observe those improvements, and if you don't implement those improvements, then you wouldn't see those changes. Now, Scrum is quite a light framework, and it enables you to actually work in such a collaborative environment, and also reduces waste. The For me, this was quite challenging, and I wanted to always try and focus on Scrum and become go deep into it. And then I never went for any certification until 2013. Yeah, I worked on several projects, products, and we built high profile products and delivered value to the customer. But then there was a lack of things that used to happen in every environment and every program we used to work in, and that was quite challenging. And then I decided in 2013 that, okay, this is a good opportunity for me to start exploring and start teaching, or sharing my knowledge across to people, to everybody. And that's when I started my journey. I went into a Scrum Master class in 2013, and from there I didn't stop. It went into working in one Scrum team to several Scrum teams, and then implementing across organizations. And now I'm actually training and coaching a lot of corporates, a lot of departments, helping them to adapt to this new ways of working. We call it a new ways of working. And if you embrace it, it's easy. If you resist it, then it's difficult. So that's where we call it mindset shift, right? We want you to move from this traditional approach, from this managerial kind of structural kind of authoritative kind of approach, into a servant leadership kind of a role. So this is where we play a very important role, and I really love this kind of work. So it puts me in a challenging position, but it's fantastic to be in such an environment.
Cool. And currently you are in UK, right?
Yes, I'm based in the United Kingdom. I moved in 2004, but I keep visiting India every year. So yes, we still have a pending catch up.
Yeah, right.
When I come
Maybe
there.
in July.
Yes, definitely.
Do bring me iPhone there.
Sure.
Okay, great. In fact, Mohammed, we have a lot of questions coming on YouTube from different subscribers. Some of them wanted to know who you
Yep.
are, so we have talked about it, and that's very important. Uh, we have to provide some authoritative skill set so that they will believe us. So that was a great introduction. Now they will trust your points. It's very difficult
Thank
to
you.
convince
Thanks.
people on the internet. Uh, yeah, right. Neeraj says Mr. Rowther is not introduced. That's the plan. Normally I don't follow this trend of introducing the guest at the start. It's important to listen from them, and then in between we'll ask for the introduction so that we can match both. But nevertheless, we got the introduction, and so I can see there are a lot of questions here. Thank you, Tijal, for the Parma. I'm not sure if it is, yeah, Parma, for the super chat, and we love super chats, by the way. Okay, so we will pick up your questions, but after we finish my questions. So I have some questions. I have written those questions, so we'll go step by step, and then of course we can pick up your questions as well, provided Mohammed is there for a good amount of time. He's a very busy
Sure, sure, no
person.
problem. No, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so the question here is now is this was my personal question when I started working in the agile environment. When I wanted to train people on agile, it was difficult. It was getting difficult for me at the start to differentiate between different models which is available in agile. In fact, to separate agile and Scrum itself. So, what's the difference between all these models, and can we interchange these words like using agile or Scrum together? So, how do we use it?
So yes, definitely. It's what works for you. You do that. Now, when you're in an environment, you may want to explore different frameworks like Scrum, Kanban, and if you're doing the traditional waterfall approach, and if it's working for you, it's working for you. There's no hard and fast rule that you have to move to such an environment. Now, when most companies, what they do is they tend to explore into Scrum because it's widely used. It's if you look at the statistics, about 77% of the organizations they are into Scrum. So most of the companies, if you look at it, they would have touched based on at least implementing one Scrum team within their organization. Now, if you look at the way Kanban works, it's again it deviates from what Scrum explains. So there's no roles in Scrum in Kanban. There's no set cadence. You can work in cycles, and it's derived from the way the Japanese used to manufacture things. So the work keeps flowing, and you have a work in process limit as well. So you would say I would not do more than 2 or 3 items at the time. Now, if I start putting in 4 or 5 items in the queue, then we shouldn't be allowing it. So you actually set some work in process limits, and that's a good thing about Kanban, where you can do that. But in Scrum, you can still do. We still encourage you to do this because there's a pattern called swarming, and also keeping encourage the developers to start working on only 1 or 2 items at the same time. Yeah, and if you can pair program, and all these techniques can be applied. Now, all these frameworks, they give you a foundation. They give you the rules, but they don't tell you about what engineering practices you need to implement. Yep. Now, you can adopt to BDD, you can do TDD, that is test-driven development, or pair programming, where developers can work together. Now, all these practices have to be deployed within the Scrum team. One of the main focus is also collaboration. Now, no matter whatever you have, you choose Scrum, you choose Kanban, and if your team is not collaborating, there's a big problem there. So you as a Scrum Master should enable these things. You should build that motivating culture, and inspire your team to start collaborating and working together. A simple example, when we actually coach teams, or when we work in the environment, we see that after the sprint planning, you have the developers and testers, they walk toward the north and the south. They don't talk to each other, and they catch up only on the 8th or 9th day of the sprint. And the developers just throw away the stuff to the testers, and they start working things, and they carry it forward to the next sprint. Now, this isn't good. This is the kind of introducing a mini waterfall approach. So it's like you say you're doing Scrum, and you're doing Scrum water. It's more of a Scrum waterfall approach. You can see all these kind of hybrid approaches done by a lot of companies and teams. Now, for companies to get the best basis and foundation is to start exploring the guide. You have the simple guide. The rules are there. You can go to the Scrum guide. You can go to Kanban website. Look at the guide. Look at what it explains. Keep those as a guide for you, and then go into your environment. Sorry, I lost my camera. So
Yeah, camera.
you go into an environment, and then you start playing accordingly. Yeah, but don't deviate from the rules. Don't deviate from the rules. You can't add additional Scrum Masters into your team. So there are certain rules and regulations that each of these frameworks provide. As long as you abide to these rules, and you can help your backlog to be refined, and if you can deliver value at the end of every cycle, that's important. If you look at waterfall approach, it's pretty traditional, and we went through that process, right, where you collect all the requirements, you wait for the requirements, and then after 2 or 3 months, you start analyzing, designing it, and then you start going into a into the model of testing and then delivering value to your customer. But it's too late. So I would recommend, when you are evaluating these frameworks, when you want to apply Agile within your environment, look at Scrum, look at Kanban, look at what is good for your environment. As a team, work towards that and experiment and look into it and start implementing it.
Okay, so now with that, Mohammed, I have some confusion here. So you have
Sure.
used these words like sprint planning, in fact, Scrum itself. Maybe the audience is still not clear about Scrum, so we can talk about it as well. So what is Scrum? And when you say that point, which you mentioned about the mini waterfall model which we have. So the moment you reduce the cycles, example, let's say instead of going to the client after 3 months, which we did, you go to a client after every 2 weeks to show the working. We use that term, which is the potentially shapeable product, right?
Yes.
So how do you plan a sprint? So let's say if I have a project which has 10 features, and I think this project will take around 6 months. And this question is very important for college students. Let's say they are doing their project and they have to finish the project in 6 months. They don't have a choice. The way we have industry says, hey, we will complete the project in 6 months, but it may take 7 months. That's fine, but in college it will not work. You have to submit the project on the exam date. So how should they plan their project? How can they use Scrum? How can they plan their sprint? And if they have, let's say, 3 to 4 people in a team, what should be the team size, first of all? And if they are going for 3 to 4 members, how should they divide the work?
Sure. So there's a lot of questions. Let me start from the basics. So
Sure.
Let me go with the team. What is Scrum first? Now, Scrum, it's a lightweight framework where a lot of teams or people, they start working together in kind of and generating some value at the end of a cycle. So just to put it in simple words, and Scrum is based on a process called empirical process. Now, when I say empirical processes, when you work in an environment, you start observing a few things and you start experimenting into a few things. And this experiment, this observation gives you clarity and gives you kind of the aspects to inspect and adapt. So the main essence is to inspect and adapt. So where you can actually observe and you can correct, you can reflect back and start improving the process. Now, it also focuses on lean thinking. Now, when I say lean thinking, it's about removing the waste and working on those top features that you want to do, that you want to implement. Now, in your example, you have about 10 features that has to happen within this college project, and they need to submit at a stipulated time. Now, a time is already defined for them. Now, generally, in Scrum, what you do is you have to see what is the capacity of that team. Now, this team can be a size of 3, 4, 6, 7, not too large, not 15, 20, or 12, or just so there is a limit within Scrum. What a Scrum team size could be between 3 to 10 or 3 to 9. So that's a limit. Now all you need in the Scrum team is a Scrum Master, a product owner, and the developers. Now, if you have 4 people there, you could implement it in such a way that one person acts as a Scrum Master, but he's also doing development activity because there's no other choice, because all of them have to contribute to the work. You could have one person who's acting as a product owner, and they could collect all these features, put them in a backlog, a list of items, a wish list. Now, when you get these 10 features and requirements, you write them in postcards, or you write them in a system like Jira or Trello, or a lot of online tools you get. You just or a board, or even a physical board, just at the back of you can have a board with to do, in progress, and done. You put all your elements there, and then have a backlog with all these 10 features or 10 stories, and define what value you will generate if you start picking up the first story or the second story or third story. Start analyzing them. Now, the product owner in that team could define a value. He could say, no, if we do card number 1, if we do card number 2 or card number 4, it generates more value and we can be faster and we can finish our project quickly. And we can also then look at the time frame, how much time it's going to take to build this application. Now, with this product backlog being there, the team can then decide on who's going to be the Scrum Master and who will be in charge of the processes. And as such, all the developers within that team can decide on what duration they want to set. Do they want to go into a 1-week cycle or a 2-week cycle or a 4-week cycle? Now, if you go with a 2-week cycle, which is ideal, you can start with your sprint planning, take items from your backlog into your sprint planning and start deciding on what needs to be done and how it can be done and start estimating them. You give some value based on the complexity. How hard is it? How difficult is it to do? What are the systems that we need? What technology are we going to use? You can also decide, so the developers can start thinking about how you're going to implement it. Now, when you do that, you put that in your sprint backlog, and this team can set a goal for that 1 week. So they have a long-term goal in 3 months that they want to achieve. That could be their product goal or application, whatever goal they want to achieve. And they can have a sprint goal every other iteration. And all these goals will then stack up to start building towards the product goal. Now, in that sprint, they commit to this goal and this team starts working. Now, when they start working, they have to catch up on a daily basis. So they could have a daily call. It's called a daily stand-up or a daily scrum. They talk about how are they doing and what's impacting their goal. So there's no prescribed format. So in the new guide, you have no prescribed format. So you can talk about what technology you're using, if you have any blockers or impediments that's actually causing any problem in achieving your sprint goal. So then the team starts focusing on working towards those things and removing those impediments. And that's where your Scrum Master would come into place. Your Scrum Master will protect the team. Now, this cycle can go on for 2 weeks, and towards the end of 2 weeks, you can then run a retrospective and a review of your product. Now, this is quite important. You can go and show the initial working model, whatever you've built, to your friends or to call other people to come and review this. Call your maybe your college lecturers or teachers to come and have a look at it if they get time. Show them what you've done and do you think it's meeting the goal and what they feel about it. So this feedback that you get, you can then apply it to your product. And then your team then goes into a process improvement, which is your retrospective. You start looking at what went well, what was wrong, and what was good, and what actions you can take, and you start improving your process. So this is the entire cycle that you do within that sprint. And after that, you're ready with a small value, right? That's your potential shippable product. So you start building this increment every 2 weeks. So within for 3 months, you may want to set like six sprints. So initially, you wouldn't know what's your velocity. Now we also call as velocity where the capacity of the team. Now you may have some students going on holiday, some students may be sick, or they may be off sick, or they may not be coming they may don't want to work in a sprint. Then you may want to calculate the capacity and see how much you can actually start taking into the next sprint and the following sprint. Start building those averages. And this is quite simple. You can apply this across your university projects, and you can see how soon you get feedback and how you can improve, and you get a kind of a plan, and you're focused on what you want to do. So it's pretty simple.
Perfect. So with that, I have one more thing. Now, since you talked about, showing it to the teachers, getting the feedback, perfect. It sounds a bit difficult, maybe it sounds a bit boring listening to that voice for a college student. The moment we say, in industry, we do that, okay? We come together, we collaborate, we discuss. In college also, we do that. Now, it's almost similar. Getting your team together, talking about how do we solve this problem. And so it sounds boring, but once you start doing it, trust me, maybe not for the big project. For a week, try this one simple project, a very simple project for a week. Go for a member of 3 to 4 members in a team, and then try to follow Scrum. For first 2 days, maybe you will find it boring, but the moment you start doing that collaboration, and that's very important, right? The collaboration and communication. The moment you start communicating, the ideas will flow, and then the productivity will go up. And that's very important when you talked about, Mohammed, the creating postcards. You know,
Yes.
when normally a student or someone starts Agile for the first time or Scrum for the first time, what they do is they put all the postcards. So these are my requirements on the requirement, the first column, and then they start moving everything in the work in progress. They don't move it to the testing. They don't move it to the done. Uh, so that's tricky. Make sure that you limit the number of tasks you're working. So let's say if you have 10 tasks, start with first two. Once you finish those two, then only go for the next 3 to 4 tasks. And one thing is very important. When you say the task is complete, what do you mean it is complete? So I just want to understand, Mohammed, here. How do you define something is complete? So let's say we have the last column, right? I don't have
Yeah.
an example here to show now. By the time you answer that, I will also show them the how a Scrum board looks like. So just want you to explain them till that point. What do you mean by done in Scrum?
Sure. So in simple terms, I cannot release anything that is not tested. Now, for example, if I was going to buy these earpods or I was going to buy this microphone, uh, if this wasn't tested, yeah, if this wasn't all the criterias for this to work is defined, and if all these criterias are not satisfied, and this was just delivered to me, I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be a happy customer. Now, this microphone or this earpods will have a certain criteria when they were building, right? This is the amount of decibel that needs to be heard, and it has to be white in color. This is the measurements, and we got to manufacture all these things with some criterias. Now, when we start writing these stories, all these stories will have some acceptance criteria. Now, generally, when I say story, I could say, as a user, I want to buy these iPods so that I can use it for my talk today. So that's a story. Now, to satisfy these things, I have to order this on Amazon, or I have to order this on any website or Apple website, and then place the order and then get that shipped to me. And there will be certain acceptance criteria that needs to be satisfied. It's the same when all of you are going to buy any product at home. You would want to test it. Now, when these products are built or services are built, they have something called as acceptance criteria and the definition of done. So because when you deliver all these collection of things into a product, right, they have a certain things that is being measured. It could be, have you done enough sorry, okay, yeah, have you done enough quality checks? Is your test cases, all the test cases have passed? Have you done enough automation? Now, if you're a developer, you may have a definition of done saying, have you done all the unit tests? If unit tests are missing, then that could be a criteria where you wouldn't release that feature, or you wouldn't release that entire increment. So this is the definition of done. So most of the cases, what happens is everything is in to do and in progress and to verify, but it it doesn't land into verify on time, and then it doesn't get done on time. So you have to be really cautious and careful at this point of time. So ensure that your development and testing is happening collaboratively. There's smaller handoffs, and you are done at a stage where the development and testing is done. It's not half baked, or you're releasing something that is just developed and not tested. So please ensure that. That's when you say it's completely done.
Okay, great. Mohammed, I'm sharing this screen. I don't know if you can see it on Zoom.
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so that's great, right? So you mentioned that first you get the requirement, then you review it. That's very important. You have to test the features, right? And again, we have one thing talk about testing as well, but we'll do that later. So you have to make sure that you test your features perfectly, and then you move them to done. So without testing it, don't move things to done. So done is not finishing the feature. It's well-tested feature. That's why we don't say done, we say done, done. I just hope we can just customize the board by saying done, done, not just a
Yeah,
done there.
you could also have a some companies, they just have 3 columns: to do, in
Yeah,
progress, and done. So some have 4 or 5 columns. They also have ready for testing, and then in QA and done. So to see what matters and how it works for your team, and build those things. But one thing you have to ensure is, don't separate development and testing. It's one entity, right? Your story flow should go in a collaborative way. You got to work in a collaborative way. It shouldn't be like a mini waterfall. As I mentioned, the development happens for 9 days, and on the 10th day, you push everything to the testing team, and they can't do anything until the next sprint. So this is kind of moving everything into a next sprint. So that's carrying forward things. So try to avoid those things.
right, right. And with that, now since we talked about testing here, Mohammed, just want
Yeah.
to talk about this. I love this concept of T-shaped developer. I also made a video on YouTube, which is available for everyone to watch. Uh, Now, what is fascinating about this Scrum team is, I started working in 2011, and when I was working on the projects, we had separate teams. We had a development team, we had a testing team, and then we have operation teams, and then there's a huge gap between all this team. There's a huge gap of communication, basically. So, development team, they will build the project. We all work together to build something. Then the features goes to the testing team, and I know everyone talks about this. There's a huge amount of memes available on developers and testers, which says developers hate testers and testers hate developers. That's not true. It's their job. As a developer, it's my job to build a product. It is their job to find bugs, because if they don't find the bugs, the client will. And when client will find the bugs, they will not getting paid, and unfortunately, you will not get paid. So it's very important to have testers, and testers who can actually test, not in the namesake. They should be finding bugs. And then when it goes to the operation team, they will deploy it. But now things are changing, right? As we also mentioned, uh, we have DevOps now, which uh, so developers and operation team works together. But then if you look at the Scrum team, as you mentioned, we'll have a team of, so what should be the ideal size? 6, 7?
As long as, yeah, keep it small. If 6 and 7 is good, it's
Yeah.
pretty
So
decent size. And you have a rule in Amazon. They follow this 2 pizza team size. So
okay.
ideally, if you serve 2 pizzas to a team, it should be enough for them to eat. So what should be the team size? Six or
In
seven.
that case,
Yeah, if you have,
in my company,
yeah.
I can finish 2 pizzas.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe team of 6 should be
Yeah,
good,
6 is
right?
ideal. Six to seven should be
Okay.
ideal.
Okay, great. So when you have team of 6 here, make sure that you follow the concept of T-shaped developer, which is everyone in the team should know everything. So basically, you should be jack of all and master of one. So let's say you are a developer, that's your specialty. You are a developer. But then you should also know testing. You should also know how do you deploy the application. So that, I guess in every Scrum team, they make sure that if someone is not present, you should not be saying, hey, we don't have a tester today. So who will test the application? So you as a developer will also test the application. So of course, when you build a project, you have to also do unit testing by yourself. But then when you do integration testing, you normally give it to the testers, but you as a developer should also know how to test an application. So it should be T-shaped. That's your vertical. This is your specialty.
Yes.
This is your jack of all. Just wanted to point that out here.
Yeah, that's very true. And you mentioned about testing, right? So developers have to test. So this is a very key aspect. Now, a team could also be struggling where there's one card or one story left, and you need additional help, right? So you can get everybody, all the developers or everybody, to start working on it, because that story is going to generate value. And this is a very good concept called swarming. Now, how all the bees, they swarm together and they start working together. So this concept is what you can apply.
Yeah, right. And that's where we have this amazing models. Especially this is true for freshers. I don't know why I'm forgetting all the concepts. Um, what do you say? What do you call when we have two people working on the same machine? The pair programming. Pair
W-
programming.
Yeah, pair programming, and we also did mob programming as well.
Yeah,
Remember
right. More
last year?
programming.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So basically, when you join a team, uh, maybe if you're a fresher, so there will be a senior person, and then you two will be doing a pair programming, where your senior will be a driver, and you will be navigator. And after some time, you will be driver, you will be coding, and then the senior will be a navigator. But it's not only true for new developers. Let's say if you're working in a team after 1 month or 1 year, still pair programming works, because if someone is coding, having two brains, it will give you a different perspective. So someone on the other side can navigate you. I know some people say waste of resource, but it's all about creating a good project, right? So if you are doing a mistake, the navigator will help you to solve that at that point. No, you don't have to waste your time in testing, then finding bugs. Of course, testing is important, but having a navigator with you will help you to remove bugs at the start itself. And then there's also more programming, where not just two, we have multiple people coming together to solve one problem. Of course, only one person will be using a keyboard because we don't have a machine which can work with multiple keyboards, but we'll be having multiple navigators. So I would suggest you to explore more on that on Google. So just go to Google and search for what is pair programming, what is mob programming. It will be helpful. Now, on that note, Mohammed, I have a
Yeah,
question for you. Yeah, you want to say something?
definitely. Yeah. I like the one point which you emphasized, early identification of the defect. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned about this point, and I want to emphasize on that. And that's where we say early testing is required. Otherwise, it's going to be expensive for you to start addressing those things at a later stage. And most of the companies, they ignore testing. They sideline testing and they keep it till the end. And it will prove to become very expensive and will not give you the ROI, the return on investment. And even when you're working on projects, start taking turns, start testing your application, start testing your project that you're building, and ensure that you start building a quality product. It could be building automation, building unit tests, building a stack of integration test as well.
Perfect. Uh, okay. I was just checking the live stream. Yeah, going good. Going good. So since we are running out of time, let's take two more quick questions, and then we can go with the
Sure. Yeah.
questions from the subscribers as well. Uh, so, so let's say if someone wants to start with a journey of Scrum or Agile, they want to learn. Okay, because if in colleges they do teach, I have seen some of the syllabus where Agile is mentioned, Scrum is mentioned, but the problem is maybe teachers or the way they have designed the curriculum is not actually focusing on the practical use of Agile, practical use of Scrum. For the students, it's more of a concept, the theoretical concepts. But since now we are talking, maybe even if 10%, if they understand the importance of Scrum and Agile, we have done our job, Mohammed. But so let's say if they want to start learning Scrum or Agile, what should be the first step? How should they start? Of course, they cannot have a 2 week cycle. How do we start?
So the best platform, first thing would be to go to the source. Now, the source for Scrum is your Scrum guide. The Scrum
Okay.
guide is about 12 pages, 10 to 12 pages, and definitely, if you're having engineering books of 300, 400 pages, 12 pages is nothing. Start your journey from there. Take each concept and then Google those concepts to get more into, in detail and depth. So the Scrum guide would be a good starting point, and then explore what the creators of Scrum have done. So Dr. Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber. So they have their own websites. You can log on to their websites. You can see a lot of things about Scrum, and they've written a lot of video. There's a lot of blogs and videos about it. So that'd be a good platform. And then you have loads of resources um, on the internet. Try and get the top 4 or 5 websites. Don't go into everything. So there's too much to explore, and there'll be different understanding. Try and shortlist top 5 sites that you will explore and you want to look into it. Keep it simple. That is a very good starting point. And then try to engage yourself into looking at videos, proper genuine videos, and looking at attending some seminars and conferences. You'll have workshops. A lot of workshop happen in across the globe, and now it's online, so most of them are free. So these things will actually give you more exposure towards what's happening in a typical industry. So before you step in from your if you join a new job, so you'll at least understand a few things that's going on there. And then once you go into the job, once you're in your role, you will be trained, you will be coached, they'll be giving you a lot of options. You may go through the formal process of going through certification or going through a proper mentor. You may have a coach like a Scrum Master or an Agile coach who will be sitting with you and helping you. So this is how you can start moving into your journey. But the best option would be to go back to the Scrum Guide, go to the source, read it, try to explore each of all those things.
Perfect. So with that now, Mohammed, we have some questions coming on YouTube. So let me take a first question here from Deep Patel, and the question is, design challenges during Scrum development.
Yes, there are challenges, but what you have to ensure is when you are doing Scrum. So when you're actually trying to implement Scrum, and then you want to have a product with a lot of things that you want to explore, I would recommend you to start thinking about what suits your environment, whether Scrum works for you or not. Yeah, and then think about what are the best practices of Scrum that other companies and other organizations have done. Look into those aspects, and then start looking and implementing it in your area. Now, when you start going into the aspects of building a product, so the product requires analysis, design, and all these aspects. So all these aspects should become a part of your Scrum environment. And it shouldn't be like, okay, I'm going to do design once, and then I'm going to do analysis, and no, all these things. So what happens is your features, your story should be vertical slices. You have to do a little bit of analysis, a design, development, testing. Everything has to happen in a go. You don't want to build this horizontal kind of approach. So try and ensure that you learn about the best practices and keep it vertical. Your stories have to be vertical.
Okay, great. So now there are so many things happening in the chat. It's difficult to pick a question now. There's a debate going on between two people.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Now there is one question which is tricky here, and maybe you are new to IT industry, and that's why the question: which language we can use Agile? English? Okay.
Which language? Yeah, you can
Which
use any
programming
language.
Now, see, the thing
no,
is,
this doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't matter, right? Now, it's language doesn't matter. Yeah, it's an environment for you to work collaboratively.
Right. That's the thing, Mohammed. Here, what is happening now is things are changing very fast. The way we used to learn in 2010, 11. I remember when I was learning. We first of all, we were not knowing what to learn. Second, we were not even having a lot of resources available. So nowadays on YouTube, everything is available. If you want to learn something, just go to YouTube and search for concept. You will find the Lisco video. Okay, you will find some video on YouTube which will help you to learn that concept, right? Now, what is happening is most of the people are focusing only on the development part, on the language part. They're not focusing on the concepts. I know we we hate that concept of software engineering. I remember when I was learning it, I used to hate all this theory of uh, you know the software requirements, SRS models. I used to hate it. What we love is development or coding, right? So just give me a keyboard. I want to type something. I want to show you the output. The moment you enter into industry, things will change. coding is not something they focus initially. They focus on team, because no one builds project by itself himself, right? You cannot say I can build the entire project here. You need a team there, right? And team, when you have a team, when you have multiple brains working together, and that's important, you have to work together. Because if you work in silos, it will be difficult for, if you are not integrating, your components will not integrate properly. uh, so that's something you have to understand, and that's why we are focusing on this other concepts apart from coding. So just open your mind towards the other concepts of, software engineering, methodologies, testing. So as a developer, I know some people say they hate testing because they have not explored it yet. You build your own project, start testing it, you will love it. And trust me, when you especially when I use JUnit, every time when I see that green line, first of all, you have to code in a such a way that you will get red lines. I'm not sure how many of you know unit testing, but you have to code so that it will give you error. That's how we start. Write a code which should fail, then make it pass, and that's a great feeling when everything is passing. uh, so just try to open your mind and learn the other concepts. uh, okay, so let me take
And
another
that's
question for you. Yeah. Yes, Mohammed, go on.
yeah, and that's what we promote, or we emphasize on teams to start working on test-driven development or behavior-driven development, where you kind of write this failing test and then start fixing them, writing the code, and then you go through that iterative model. And that's what Agile and Scrum wants you to do. And this will make your uh, ability to ensure a quality product is built.
Right, right. Another question for you from Kishore, and the question is difference between Scrum and Kanban.
Fantastic. Yeah. So Scrum is a pretty lightweight framework. Now, Scrum has few roles. It's got three roles. It's got 5 events and some artifacts, 3 artifacts. Now, these roles are product owner, Scrum master, and the developers. Now, when I say developers, it's all about having the testers, the BAs, everybody in the team. And then you have these 5 events where you start a sprint, you have a sprint planning, you have daily Scrum, you have your sprint review, and the retrospective. And your artifacts, what do you deliver? What is the value that you provide? Is your product backlog that provides a value called a product goal. So based on the vision and the priorities, what are you building, and how are you delivering those things? So your sprint backlog is something that will ensure that a sprint goal is achieved. So at the end of every sprint, and towards that, you also deliver something called as a product increment. Now, this is where the definition of done also comes into place. So it's the kind of the sum of completed work that's been delivered at the end of the sprint. Now, the if you look at the whole model, the team is very autonomous. They are given liberty to choose how they want to work. Now, as I explained, you could apply TDD, you could apply BDD, behavior driven development, you could apply all these engineering practices within your team, but you have to work collaboratively. So interaction and is very important. That's the key thing, right, within Agile. Now, when you go into Kanban, Kanban is again a framework where these roles are not in place. So you don't have these kind of roles. They work in cycles. If you look at the traditional model of how lean manufacturing was happening, especially Toyota was using this Kanban, and they had the work in process that used to get into the flow. So you can keep adding stuff, and if you're able to do it, you keep doing it. Yeah, but you will not take beyond the capacity or beyond certain amount of work that you want to do. So if your in progress item was like 3 or 4, you will not take more than 4 items. So you will limit to that, and that's what your team will work towards, and that's the limit you would take. So, but Kanban as such, if you look at what the Japanese used to call, is nothing but a billboard. You must have seen a billboard, right, or a signboard. It's similar to that, and their main purpose was to maximize efficiency and visualize this work. That's why they had this kind of flow, the continuous flow of work. If you see a lot of models like SAFe, SAFe provides you this emphasis on using Kanban. And the other focus on Kanban is also about improving continuously. Now, this is there in Scrum as well. You have Kaizen. Kaizen is kind of improvements that happens every sprint. So similarly, in Kanban, you improve continuously. But the thing that that clearly differentiates is there's no roles. You don't have the roles like the Scrum Master and all these things. And in terms of the cycle as well, you don't need to set this 2 weeks or a 1 month duration cycle. Yeah. So the cycle is not you don't need to measure this one. You don't need to fix it. Apart from that, what others can I explain to you about Kanban? Um, if you feel that there is your environment is kind of getting continuous work, if you're working in a support environment or a support team, Kanban really works well there. Where you have support tickets to take care of, and you want to work on these continuous P1, P2 issues. That's a good environment for you to work. Even in call centers, you can apply Kanban. But it boils down to what really works in your culture and in your environment. Choose that framework. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, now there's a question from, and before going ahead, it's actually difficult to explain Scrum and Kanban verbally, right? So if you show the boards, if you show the flow, it becomes easier to explain.
It becomes
so I was thinking how
I don't have. Yeah, I don't have a board, but generally in Kanban you have more column. You can have the board like a backlog. Then they say we'll have a ready column, or you could then say coding, testing, approval. There's different ways you can actually structure these boards.
Right. Now there's another question from Pranav Kulkarni, and the question is how people interact in a Scrum meeting. It's not like what you say, parliament when they fight, but yeah.
The interaction is one of the major things, right? So in the Scrum environment, you have the sprint planning where you talk to each other. You have your daily Scrum that takes place in the morning, yeah, where you start talking about what is stopping you from achieving the sprint goal. So that's one area where you actually discuss, but it doesn't stop you from actually going and talking to your developer or to your team members at other point of time. So we encourage collaboration and communication. So if you have an issue that's cropped up at the end of the day, you can still go and talk to your developer and tell him that this is an issue that I found, and I want to actually address this. Can we have a discussion, or can we see if this can be fixed? So just walk up, talk to your team member, or if you're using a virtual environment, do a Zoom call or do a MS Teams. If you're working on Microsoft Teams, just try and ping your developers and tell them this is an issue I found. Let's try and work together. Let's try and see how this is the issue I found. Try and give all the details. Now, the discussions has to be healthy. Yeah, there's emphasis on respect. You have to respect your team members, and please ensure that you address the issue in a very collaborative way and in a respectful manner. Now, if you look at the Scrum values, it talks about one of the values is about respect, and this is very important for a team to start working in a good environment. So keep it simple. There's no fighting required. There's nothing like it's a war between the developer and tester. No, you're all working as a team, and your goal is to build one product for the organization. So you're all one team. So remember that's important. If you're working for your own performance, you will never succeed.
That's perfect. Don't fight in the meetings. And so, okay, great. It's not that we can, you will never fight, but that's not the main agenda here. It's all about interaction, solving the issues. And then we have a Scrum Master to help you there. And that's the next question. Question is a bit weird, but let's take it. This is from Neeraj, and the question is, what are the benefits of being a Scrum Master? So maybe this is on a point of view. If you are in a team, why should you certify so that you can become a Scrum Master? What are the benefits of that?
Yeah, there's loads of benefits. Now the first thing is, As a Scrum Master, there are n number of responsibilities. Now, you as a Scrum Master will be uh, responsible for the process with working with the team and how you can improve the entire Scrum process. And you will be able to protect the team, and you act as a coach as well. So it's not about just giving instructions, right? You're not going to give it. You're going to empower your team, motivate them, and inspire them to work in a very good manner. And this is where we call the team is more self-organizing and self-managing. So they know how to do the work, but you are actually empowering them to go into that kind of a environment. Now, as a Scrum Master, you could do several certifications. You have different boards, different organizations that provide you certification. Now, if you're already a Scrum Master, you could advance yourself into different levels, learn about moving into working in multiple teams. You have different options for those things, like safe, Scrum at scale. You have less. You have a lot of other environments that certification process that you can learn. Now, if you're starting your career as a Scrum Master, it'd be good to work in a program or a project first, and then choose a certification process. Yeah, it makes more sense. So get into the environment, stay there for 3 or 4 months, and then start going into then your thought process would change completely. You would know exactly what is expected out of you and what you want to achieve. Yeah, it would become more practical for you because you have worked in that environment and you know what to correct, what to change. It adds a lot of difference.
Right. Right. Okay, that was a great question actually. I thought it was weird, but yeah, it makes sense now. Uh, Great. So, last two questions. The first one is, what should we discuss during a daily stand-up in Scrum?
The main focus should be what is blocking you from achieving the sprint goal, and how are we progressing. Now, for example, if you have your team member is struggling with something, you could offer help. Or if he's being blocked by something, you can go and offer him help and try and see if you can support your team member to accelerate or to help or to resolve those issues. Now, this is your main focus. And there is no typical format prescribed. So earlier in the old Scrum guide, we had a typical format that people used to say, what I did yesterday, what am I going to do today, and do I have any blockers? There's no prescribed format now. You as a team can decide on what you want to discuss, but the focus and emphasis should be towards what is blocking you in achieving that sprint goal.
Right. Now,
And
on
please,
that
yeah,
point
time
of
box this
blocking,
into 15 minutes. Yes.
oh, that's right. 15 minutes and stand up, okay? So that's
Yeah.
important. Don't sit. The moment you sit on a chair, and that's why, when I take the interviews or when I go live on YouTube, I try to stand so that, I can be on point with my questions. We don't discuss anything else. That's very important because when your legs pain, you are on point. So, so my next question for you, this is from Vachu, and very important question is, what do you do if the team is reluctant to implement Agile? How do you influence?
That's a fantastic question. Now, you cannot force, right? And this, if you look at all these statistics and if you look at all these reports that comes out every other year, uh, and resistance is the top is on the second. The resistance from the teams or resistance from organization, that people don't want to change. They don't want to adapt to these kind of environment. There's a lot of reasons for these things. One is they could be a manager. They don't want to lose their power. They want to be they kind of it's an environment where you have layers of you have your manager, you have a project manager, then you have a lead, then you have a team lead, and then you have a Scrum team, and then within the Scrum team they start creating a lot of hierarchical system. Now, in Scrum there is no hierarchy, there's no layers. Everybody's equal. Yes, your organization could put you in different bands and different levels to based on your experience. That's depends on each organization. How can you get somebody to start liking Agile? Now, this is one thing I mentioned in the starting of the talk. There's a bit of doing and that's a being. Now, being is all about mindset. Now, you need to ensure that the mindset shift happens. Now, how can you do that? So there are a lot of workshops you can conduct. You can emphasize on forgetting what is Agile all about. Leave Agile towards the end and think about why the organization exists. Why are we building these products? And what is the purpose of it? So when you start doing these things, you start coming up with a lot of questions, a lot of solutions saying we want to build the best quality product. We have to be in the top of the market. We have to ensure that there are no bugs in the market. It's going to be a high performing company. All these things, and we have to be at the top. Our shareholding, our market value should be the top notch. Fine. All these things are what you want to achieve. But how are you going to achieve this? You need something to achieve these things. You want to build a product, but you want to achieve all these things. What makes you achieve? Would you choose waterfall? Would you choose an agile methodology? And if you look at the statistics, waterfall success rate is pretty low, 1 in 4 projects. But if you look at agile projects, they have been more successful and they can actually work through any disruption in the economy or disruption in the environment. So if you look at what happened in the last 2 years, we had this pandemic. A lot of companies that were actually more agile were able to adapt. They were able to sustain in this environment. Other companies that were pretty waterfall struggled in this environment. Now, from here, you can then deciding on moving into Scrum or whatever framework suits you, and how you can achieve these values and how you can deliver this to your customer. Now, there will be resistance. People will be skeptical about actually how am I going to work in this environment. I'm going to lose authority. I'm going to lose power. But then the emphasis will be to look at how you can work in this collaborative environment. And the goal, the aim is looking at what we deliver to the customer. That's the main thing. If you don't deliver value, the company will not survive and you're not going to be there in the company. It's going to collapse completely. You don't want that to happen. So look at things that work and shift your mindset from a managerial kind of a role into a leadership role. So we call this as a servant leader. Build those qualities rather than, providing or telling things to people. Ask them to explore. Give them the liberty. Give them the freedom to do things. Build an environment which is pretty open and it's pretty safe for them to talk about issues. So they need to have that courage, right? To start talking about what things are going wrong, what's happening in the environment, and how we can actually explore those things. So it's not about just hiding away and sliding away and saying, no, everything works fine. I'm not responsible for these things. No. You want to build an environment where you can focus on problems, you can talk about it in an open environment, and you feel safe about it. For that, you need to have the courage, and your company should give you that liberty to do that. And that's where the culture plays a very important role. And for you to build this culture, the mindset shift needs to take place. It has to happen within you. So me as a person, I have to change. So every individual there needs to change. Only then this takes place.
Right. So we have to make sure that everyone is in support. So if one is creating the hurdle, then it will affect the entire project. Perfect. So with that, in fact, we have so many questions, but we are running out of time. So I have an important question for you, Mohammed. So when I went to your website, so I saw a lot of different stuff. So I just want to understand what exactly it is, the effective agile.
Efficient agile. So efficient agile is So we are into providing consultancy services and training across corporates and individuals. So we cater to provide basic Scrum certification workshops for companies. Like if you want to have a story writing workshop, you want to do a backlog refinement, or if you want coaching services. So we provide all these things. We have a small team. We have other trainers as well who work in our organization, and we start providing the services across most of the companies in UK, Europe, and also most of my public classes are announced for India as well. Yeah, so we provide certification courses like Certified Scrum Master, Scrum Master, Scrum at Scale, and some private classes around Scale Agile frameworks. Yeah, and the main essence for us is to spread the knowledge. And also, because I've been in the test industry for quite some time, I emphasize on BDD. So I do workshops on behavior-driven development and also talk about test automation and testing practices.
Okay, perfect. Now, since we are not able to take all the questions here, maybe after some weeks or next week we can go live again if you're available,
Sure.
of
Yeah,
course. But let's say if someone
definitely.
wants to connect with you, so I've shared your profile of your LinkedIn profile in the chat. If someone want to ask a question, I don't know if the right platform to ask you if they have any questions or to connect with you. Uh, so
That should be fine. I think
that should be
LinkedIn
fine.
is a good platform. They
Okay.
can they can also email me info@efficientagile.com if they have any questions.
Okay, great. So you have two platforms now, LinkedIn and a mail ID. So you can communicate with. You can ask your questions, and then he's very helpful. He's not like me who don't reply to the mails, but so maybe again we can have another session next time.
Definitely. Yeah, let's plan something.
Yeah. So this session was very helpful. Thank you so much for your time. I know taking out the time is difficult nowadays, but thank you so much. And so sorry for spoiling your weekend, but I hope everyone on this channel have learned something. I know this is not something you can learn in a day or 1 hour, but even if we were able to give you some knowledge which will motivate you to learn more, that's the entire purpose. Just go to Google, search about whatever terms we have used. In fact, lightly he has used so many terms. If you just go to Google and search for each term, you are a Scrum Master. So that's how you use those terms efficiently. That's great, Mohammed. Thank you for being on this platform. I want you to be here again next time. Take out some time. Let me know when you're free. Ideally, it's good to go live on weekends because people are there to watch.
Sure.
So, how was your experience? I hope you enjoyed.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Thanks a lot, Naveen, for this amazing experience. And thanks to all the audiences and the questions, wonderful questions. Yes, we should definitely go live next time and let's plan this out and let's have fun. Yeah. So that's been our goal, right? We've always been enjoying and having fun in all the environments.
Right, it's all about fun.
Yeah.
I mean, why to do something when you don't enjoy it? Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. So that's it from this live session. Of course, we will continue our interaction, but on the YouTube. Bye bye, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next live session. Maybe next week I'm going live again. Yeah, next week there's a learning hackathon going on of YouTube. Next week, I guess 3rd April, we are doing a live session on Python. Basically, how do you start coding? So I hope you're excited for that. You will find the link in the YouTube videos. I'm not sure if that's visible there, but find it somewhere. I'm not sure where you will find it, but that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye. See you in the next live session.
Thank
And make
you.
sure that you hit that like button and subscribe and share the videos. And yeah, Mohammed, any final words to the audience?
Oh, it's been a wonderful experience. Yeah, yeah, you can watch the videos and I'll share a lot of content on Agile and Scrum as well. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye bye.
Great.